I wasn't supposed to take that apartment, but at the time it felt like I didn't have a choice, because the rent was too low to ignore, and I needed somewhere to stay immediately. The landlord seemed nervous from the very beginning, like he wanted the whole interaction to end as quickly as possible. And when he handed me the key to apartment 306, his hand was slightly shaking. I remember asking him if something was wrong with the place, and he just forced a small smile and told me it was perfectly fine. But his eyes kept drifting toward the hallway behind me. The building itself felt strange the moment I walked in, because it was quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. Like the silence wasn't just the absence of sound, but something heavier that filled the space. The air smelled like dust mixed with something sweet and artificial, almost like someone had tried to cover up a much worse smell and failed. As I walked down the hallway toward my apartment, I noticed how every door looked identical, scratched and worn, but for some reason, none of them had numbers except mine. Apartment 306 was at the very end of the corridor, slightly separated from the others, like it didn't quite belong there. When I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was how cold it was compared to the hallway, even though the heating was supposedly working. I told myself it was just an old building, the kind that never really holds temperature properly, and I started unpacking my things, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling in my chest. The first few hours passed without anything unusual happening, and I almost convinced myself that I had overreacted to the landlord's behavior. I set up my bed, plugged in my phone charger, and even made something to eat, trying to make the place feel normal. But every now and then I had this strange feeling like I wasn't alone, like something was watching me from just out of sight, though every time I turned around, there was nothing there. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to fall asleep, because the silence in the apartment felt too complete, almost unnatural. It wasn't just that there were no sounds from neighbors or traffic, but even the usual background noises of a building seemed to be missing, like the place itself was holding its breath. I checked my phone to distract myself, but even the signal was weak, flickering in and out as if something was interfering with it. I don't know exactly when I first heard the knocking, because at first it blended into my thoughts, like something I imagined rather than something real. It was soft and distant, coming from somewhere inside the wall next to my bed. 3 slow taps that were evenly spaced, almost careful. I held my breath and listened, trying to figure out if it was just pipes or some kind of mechanical noise. But deep down I already felt that it wasn't. A few seconds later, it came again, the exact same pattern, the exact same timing, like whatever was making that sound was repeating itself on purpose. I sat up slowly, staring at the wall, feeling my heart starting to race, even though I kept telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Old buildings make sounds all the time, I reminded myself, but none of them sound like someone thinking before each knock. I tried to ignore it by lying back down and turning away, pulling the blanket over my shoulder like that could somehow block the sound. That's when it changed. The knocking didn't stop, but it moved, shifting from the wall to the ceiling above me, as if whatever was making it had changed position. This time the 3 knocks were louder, closer, directly above my head. I didn't sleep at all that night because every time I started to drift off, I thought I heard it again. Faint, but still there, always in the same pattern. When morning finally came, the apartment looked completely normal, almost peaceful, like nothing had happened at all. For a moment, I even considered the possibility that I had imagined everything out of stress. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to check what was above me, so I went upstairs. The staircase leading up was narrow and poorly lit, and with every step I took, the air seemed to get colder and heavier. At the top, instead of another hallway with apartments, there was only a single metal door with a faded sign that read attic. The door looked old and unused, with dust gathered thick around the edges like no one had opened it in years. I tried the handle anyway. It didn't move. I knocked on the door just once, just to see if maybe someone was inside. There was no response. But as I stood there listening, I had this strange feeling that something on the other side was listening back. I quickly went back downstairs, telling myself I was overthinking everything, but the uneasiness stayed with me the entire day. I tried to distract myself by leaving the building for a while, grabbing food, walking around, anything to clear my head. But even outside, I couldn't stop thinking about those 3 knocks and the way they sounded too deliberate to be random. That night, I decided I was going to record everything just in case. I set my phone on the nightstand and positioned it so it faced the wall and part of the ceiling. I sat on the bed, waiting, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity that I couldn't quite explain. It didn't take long. The knocking started again. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. But this time it was louder than before, clearer, almost impatient, like whatever was making that sound was no longer trying to stay hidden. I felt my throat go dry as I listened, because now there was no way to convince myself it was just the building. It felt intentional. It felt aware. And for a moment I had this overwhelming sense that it was waiting for me. That's when I made the worst decision of my life. I raised my hand slowly and knocked back. 3 times. The silence that followed was immediate and absolute, like the entire world had just stopped. Even the faint electrical hum I hadn't noticed before was gone, leaving behind a kind of emptiness that made my ears ring. Then something hit the wall, hard, so hard that the impact shook the bed beneath me and made the lights flicker violently. I jumped back, my heart pounding, as the sound echoed through the apartment. And then I heard it, a voice, soft, close, not coming from the wall anymore, but from somewhere inside the room. "You answered." I didn't move because I was too afraid to even breathe, and for a few seconds there was nothing but silence again. Then, very slowly, I heard something else. A second voice, quieter, almost overlapping the first. "You let me in." That was the moment I ran. I grabbed my phone without even checking if it was still recording, and rushed out of the apartment, leaving the door wide open behind me. The hallway felt different now, darker somehow, even though the lights hadn't changed. As I reached the stairs, I heard something behind me. Footsteps, slow, dragging, following me. I didn't turn around because I knew that if I did, I might see something I would never be able to forget. Instead, I kept moving faster and faster until I reached the exit and pushed the door open. The cold air outside hit me like a shock, but I didn't stop until I reached my car. I spent the rest of the night there trying to make sense of what had just happened, but every time I closed my eyes, I heard those 3 knocks again, echoing in my head. In the morning, I checked the recording. At first, everything looked normal. The room, the silence. Then the knocking started. It was exactly as I remembered. But when I got to the part where I knocked back, something was different. There was an extra sound. A 4th knock. Not mine. Not from the wall. From inside the room. And then, on the recording, the voice spoke again. Clearer this time, closer. Now I don't have to stay in the walls. I felt a chill run through my entire body as I realized something I hadn't thought about the night before. The knocking had never been trying to get my attention. It had been trying to get out, and I had just helped it. I never went back to apartment 306, but sometimes late at night when everything is completely silent, I still hear it. 3 slow knocks. Not from the walls, not from the ceiling, but from somewhere much closer, sometimes from inside my own room. And last night, for the first time, it knocked back when I didn't.